You might have been busy celebrating Independence Day, too busy to see weekend headlines about more spying.
And again, the National Security Agency, or NSA, is at the center, and so is Edward Snowden.
Back to compute this, the owner of Schrock Innovations, Thor Schrock. Good to see you, Thor.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
So we've seen these other headlines over the last months, but this is new. So what's the story?
Yeah, this was a pretty big bombshell. Apparently, the NSA had always maintained that Edward Snowden did not have direct access to raw intelligence. In other words, he didn't see unredacted intelligence reports, or SIGINT as they call it, signals interception. Turns out he did. In fact, he had the capability to specifically target an individual anywhere in the world for monitoring.
And without permission.
Yeah, without any oversight or permission. And that was one of the things that made him decide that this wasn't right.
And we know this because he released some documents to what, the Post?
Yeah, the Washington Post 2 years ago, he gave him these documents, but there was 10,000 pages of, raw, unredacted, super classified intelligence that the Post didn't just publish it. They actually went through all the pages. They showed all the pages to the government and said, we're going to release some of this. If you want anything redacted, you better tell us what it is and why. And they were very cooperative with the government.
And they did, yeah.
And they
withheld some of that because of security issues.
Oh yeah, there was all kinds of, there was a military disappointment for one of our enemies in the world that was redacted because it would compromise sources and methods and things like that.
So how does the NSA determine who to target? Is it just, because obviously we don't mind if they're going after terrorists. Hello,
that's right.
Get them however you can, but that's not the only people they were targeting.
The biggest revelation of these Snowden documents is that for every one legitimate target that the NSA goes after, 9 innocent people are swept in to the surveillance. So, for example, there was an example of a story, and this isn't a perfect example because you could argue that the woman is an idiot, but there was a romantic relationship online between a woman in Australia and a man in Australia. And the man in Australia was a Muslim man who wanted to go fight infidels in Afghanistan with Al-Qaeda. And they went back and forth, and she told him it wasn't a good idea, and there was all the suggestive, everything you would think about in an online romance was involved.
Yeah.
And the NSA has a complete copy of all of it. And then he goes off to Afghanistan to try to find some Al-Qaeda guys to fight with, but they don't take him seriously, so he comes back home. And then they break off the relationship. She gets engaged to another guy and moves on with her life. But this record of her having a romantic relationship with a guy who was openly saying that he was a terrorist and wanted her to comply with Sharia law to have a relationship, that is in a permanent record on this woman for the rest of her life. What happens if she wants to run for office, maybe adopt a child someday, or do something that, a legitimate thing that any of us want to do in our lives? Is that a fair game thing now?
Did they release her name? I don't think we know who it is.
Well, the Snowden documents had her name, and the Post was able to actually track her down and asked her how she felt about it. And she said, well, I was kind of talking to a guy who wanted to be a terrorist, so I guess I can't complain too loudly.
What about the rest of us who aren't engaging with people?
Because some of these people are just getting swept up in through the procedures of tracking.
Yeah, so like I said, that's not a great example because she was asking for it, but the rest of us aren't. And so a great example, I am probably an NSA target.
Why?
Or an inadvertent NSA target.
What have you done?
I have
what have you done?
Foreign nationals on contact lists. So in other words, my Skype, we have a lot of suppliers in China that we talk to.
These are all business contacts.
Business contacts, yeah. So if you have anyone overseas, Mike, you have relatives in Italy. Yeah. You're probably been swept up in an NSA suite.
Just because you were communicating with someone in another country.
Yeah, just because you were communicating with someone overseas, just because you exchange, it can be as easy as going to the same web server and conducting in your own business as a terrorist. So you like to play online games. So you go to a server where you can play multiplayer. Well, there's a terrorist that happens to like that same server. Now everyone gets monitored that goes to that server.
What can we do then to protect our privacy online from the NSA? Is there a bigger dog agency? If they want to get to us, can't they? What could we do?
They can if they want.
Yeah, there's literally nothing that you can do. In fact, another of the shocking revelations was, some of the things the NSA wants to do require warrants from a judge in a FISA court.
Yeah.
And sometimes, this was a revelation, the judges say no. So if the judge says no to a warrant-based activity, the NSA has other monitoring activities like PRISM or Upstream that we talked about on previous shows that they can turn to that do not require warrants. So basically, if the NSA gets told no, they just use a different collection method and they get the data they want.
Why would they even seek a warrant in the first place if they can go about getting it?
They're trying to comply with the law, and the first method of collection is always the best, where they can monitor every single thing your computer does. Even when you type, you're typing and you backspace and you retype, that's monitored.
Hey, let's switch gears and get to your recycling event. This is something you do every year.
Oh, yeah.
It's coming up.
Yes, it is.
This month. So what are you taking in?
Okay, so basically every year we do a big recycling, but you were asking what can you do about your
Yes.
privacy. Well, for the NSA, there's not much you can do besides elect different politicians and hope that they can move the ball or something. I don't know, but the best thing you can do is recycle your equipment in a responsible way. So during our recycling event, we take all computer equipment, computers, laptops, hard drives, printers, scanners, keyboards, mice, everything. We'll even take one monitor for free per household during the recycling event. Normally we charge for that.
Yeah.
But the big fun thing is if you're really a privacy freak and you're really concerned about what's going to happen to your hard drive, we're going to actually have, I would say, Saturday the 18th at our Lincoln location and Sunday the 19th in our Papillion location. We're going to have Data Destruction Inc. there, and they bring a giant hard drive shredder. And for $5, you can actually drop your own hard drive or cell phone or whatever
And
you
watch
want
it go?
into the shredder and just watch it get absolutely
cool.
destroyed.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of fun.
You know, for a lot of people, you think that you've deleted everything, but the truth is somebody who's a little bit savvier than you are could still go and get that information if you don't dispose of some of that technology properly.
And of course at Schrock, we make sure every single hard drive that's turned in, if you don't want to pay the $5 to destroy it, you're still safe. We're not going to allow your hard drive to leave our service center intact.
So 3 locations. We have the Omaha Service Center, Village Point South, also in Papillion, and that's where you can go on the 19th if you'd like to destroy your own stuff. And then in Lincoln on the 18th, and the address is listed there. Also SchrockInnovations.com, a good place to go to keep in touch with Thor.
New service center coming to Council Bluffs, Iowa in October.
Ah, you got a few months.
Yeah,
You have a new one.
Nice.
Literally 3.
Going to
Love
Iowa,
this.
right?
Yeah, we're going to Iowa,
Wonderful.
so
Awesome.
you heard it here first.
Thanks, Thor.
Thank you guys.
See you.
All right, I want to play